Alright everyone, so just want you to kind of envision this for a little second. So it's 9:30 p.m. You guys look up in the sky. You guys are at least in like anywhere around Orange County. You'll see just around that harbor area, you'll see Disneyland fireworks every night at 9:30. So if you're like me, I always wonder, how did the first idea spark the first firework? In that sense, I want to go back into talking about Walt Disney. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be highlighting the main accomplishments of Walt Disney. So just to go over some of the points I'm going to be making, I'm going to be going over Walt Disney's most iconic character. I'm also going to be talking about how he revolutionized the animation industry. And then once again, I'm going to be talking about how he opened up the happiest place on earth, okay? So by learning some of Walt Disney's journey to success, I hope by the end of the speech you appreciate his legacy and what he stood for as well. So for starters, all things start somewhere. Walt Disney started following his dream by creating one of the most iconic characters we know today, Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse debuted in 1928 as Steamboat Willie. That makes him 90 years old as of last year in November. He actually first started in a short called Plain Crazy, where he featured with Minnie, but that one did not release until later that year in 1929. Mickey, along with his friends, have had countless comics, films, TV shows, and movies over the years as well. However, even though Mickey himself was very successful as a character, that wasn't Walt Disney's first character he's ever really made. He actually made Oswald, the Lucky Rabbit, which was actually a partnership between him and people at Universal. Oswald the Lucky Rabbit started in the cartoon Trolley Troubles in 1927, so about a year before Mickey debuted. He showed up for 26 cartoons. So Disney really had big plans for Oswald. However, like I said earlier, they sold his rights away. So Disney's pretty much big idea went out the door. That's when he kind of went back to that drawing table, and that's where Mickey usually came about. So with the creation of Mickey, we see a lot of iterations in everywhere in Walt Disney. The logo you see at the Disney Channel is now Disney Mickey Mouse. You see the Mickey Mouse hats everywhere. Mickey Mouse itself is more iconic than I guess you would say Disneyland is. You know, there is no Disneyland without Mickey Mouse as well. So now that we discussed the creation that started it all, I want to kind of go into an idea that actually snowballed a little bit more when it comes to animation and the process of animation. So I'm going to talk about Disney's biggest gamble that he took early on in his career. So one of the biggest gambles he took on early in his career was making an animated film. So today, animated films are seen regularly. Just myself, I saw Spider-Man the other day animated. Today it's normal for people to go see animated films every day. However, back in the days, everybody, including his wife, kind of told him, hey, that's kind of a risky idea. Who's gonna want to sit down and see an animated film for about an hour? Certainly no adult is gonna want to do that. However, in December 21st of 1937, Disney actually premiered Snow White in Hollywood for the first time. Critics really loved it. He got standing ovations. He later released it to the public in February and made over 80 million according to thehistory.com. During the time he made 80 million, it's very impressive because he actually made it during the Great Depression. If you guys know about the Great Depression, the economy was not as stable as it should have been. So it's very impressive for a man of his talents to do that. Why is the film important? Kind of set the standard for animated films. Like I said, it's the first major successful one. Before that, animated films were only about less than 5 minutes. Mickey and Oswald cartoons were probably less than 5 minutes themselves. So after creating Mickey and Snow White, what was Disney's next step to his career? It was the future of entertainment. So he thought bigger than just animated films and animated movies. Eventually, he went on to his big step in the road to success, and he thought bigger plans. He thought a bigger method of entertaining people. So he was thinking about it. Disney had the biggest idea ever. He wanted to create the happiest place on earth. So fast forward to today, we all know Disneyland is down the street. Go down Harbor and be there in just a few minutes. We see how successful it is with a high volume of tourists, locals visiting every day to enjoy themselves. Walt Disney created this world where all his imaginations can live and come to life. Today we seem to enjoy everything he makes, including rides, TV shows. It kind of themselves snowball into a bigger idea. So Disneyland has now rides such as Star Tours, Indiana Jones, and many other ideas that he himself has not created, but as you can see, imagination kind of took on itself at that point. Back when he first actually opened the park, however, something that a lot of people don't really look at is that he actually really did a bad job. If you talk to any employees that worked at Disneyland back in the days, they actually call it the Black Sunday. So his first day at Disneyland was probably the most hectic for him. He probably wanted to quit back then, but he really pushed through it. So Black Sunday, it's not a Black Friday, it's not something good. A lot of things went wrong. Food was running out. The tickets, they sold way more tickets than they should have. There was a report saying that there was actually fake tickets being sold and duplicated for people to come. I believe they also ran out of food, so people are impatient. It's hot. It's Anaheim. Rides were incomplete. Nothing was really working. So it's a disaster for himself. But he pushed through it, as we can see. Now Disneyland. I mean, when we go to Disneyland, the worst thing that happens to us is a ride breaks down. Luckily, they usually fix it, or there's other rides to go on. So at this time, I want you to know the importance of how his legacy has lived and how we see it from years to come, and then hopefully our children will actually see also Disney's legacy, as they're going to soon be seeing Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse all over the TV, and hopefully going to Disneyland with you guys. So in conclusion, now that you've heard my 3 points about Walt Disney's career and what he did to overcome his dreams and make them into reality, it's certain that Mickey Mouse, Snow White, and Disneyland is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to his creations and his innovations. They did leave a lasting legacy for us to follow and look at as well. So next time you find yourself looking up at the fireworks at 9:30 p.m., just remember that one idea started it all, and now he is everywhere pretty much.
Do you want to lecture? Diego, you here? No, of course not. That would just be too easy. All right, give me just a second here. All right, well, I like the idea of the visualization of the fireworks at Disney at the start of the speech. I don't think it quite works as well as you want it to. You've got a good idea here, but the way you presented it sounds like you're actually going to be talking about fireworks first, and it didn't really seem like it had much to do with Disney. And then suddenly we switched to Disney, and I'm going, okay, I can see how you were trying to get there. I just didn't think that it worked very smoothly. That's something that I think could easily be fixed. There's a very clear and very basic structure that's set up at the beginning of the speech. We know what your topic area is. It's broad, but at least it's clear where you're headed, and you've got a division of material that's also very straightforward. It's topical in nature, so it's not complicated for us to follow. And you also had very good transitions when you identified those points. I think I could use a little bit of the source citations when you were talking about the history of Mickey Mouse and Oswald Rabbit. I'm sure that I know you didn't make this information up. You got it from someplace. You just have neglected to tell us where. I did hear some source citations when you were talking about Snow White and the box office, but that was about it as far as that kind of reference, and I think you need to do a little bit more than that. The pacing is sometimes a little off, although I do like the descriptions that you have in each of the sections. The importance of Mickey Mouse, I think you need to explain how it gave him a continuing success in that time period, how it was the basis for some of the ideas that came later on. Obviously, the the critical success and the financial success of Snow White is one of the things that established the studio. But remember, we're talking about a time period. We don't really get a good sense of the time period here. I think most people have a vague idea. You know, Mickey Mouse cartoons start in, what I think you said 1927 was the sound cartoon, and then Disneyland's opening in 1954 or 55, and Snow White, you did mention, is in 1937, so I'm thinking there are big empty spots here, which doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be filled, but you might want to make your transitions work a little bit to kind of fill in those blanks without actually covering a bunch of material. So for instance, when you're going from the thing about the cartoons, you say, well, okay, obviously he had incredible success with the Mickey Mouse cartoons, and for 10 years he was, you know, at the top of the heap when it came to animation studios in Southern California and Hollywood, and he produced X number of shorts and that sort of thing. But his big transition was, you know, 10 years after Steamboat Willie with, you know, this kind of thing. And then I could see that there's a little bit clearer path that we're getting from one point to the next. And then the same sort of thing when you're talking about, you know, getting to Disneyland. You know, between 1937 and 1954, when Disneyland opened, Walt had a whole bunch of successes with other movies. You know, Snow White started it, but then there are other films that happened there. But that's when, while that was going on, his ambition grew, and he began plotting that idea of Disneyland. And of course, it was risky because it was something different, like Mickey Mouse and sound had been different, like Snow White as a feature-length film had been different. He wanted to do something different here. And I think that would make the transitions work a little bit more smoothly, and it would also kind of fill in the story so it doesn't feel like it's just, you know, random point here, random point here, random point here, but key points. And I like everything that you've got in the speech. I'm just trying to tell you, here's some things that you could do that would make it flow a little bit more smoothly. All right, who wants to point out the elephant in the room? The one that you can't see.
Oh, the presentation.
Yeah, we had no visual materials in the presentation, and you know that's a quarter of the grade, so you know that that's not going to go well. And you have maybe the most easily visualized kinds of concepts here. You know, the Mickey Mouse cartoons, especially when you're talking about you know, Steamboat Willie having the sound, and then Oswald Rabbit. You know, I'm just thinking, well, why don't we get a comparison here? That's an easy one. People know Mickey Mouse. They may not be familiar with Oswald. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But that would be an easy contrast to put up dual pictures on one slide, and you could see, you know, how they're similar, but also how they're different. And maybe also something that shows how Mickey evolved over a period of time. And then something about Snow White, for example, its box office numbers could easily be illustrated. And you mentioned, you know, here's the Depression and $80 million and how successful it is in 1937. You know, that's the basis of doing a whole bunch of things in the future. I'm gonna say this, I'm not positive about it. But I'm pretty sure that that's $80 million in its lifetime as opposed to $80 million in 1937. I'm sure it made a lot of money in 1937. I don't think it made $80 million in 1937, so it'd probably be a little bit different. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't a huge financial success, and that would be something that's easy to visualize also. And then, of course, Disneyland, I don't know. I had a speech about Disneyland this semester, and I guess it wasn't this class, but they had a couple of pictures of the opening day kinds of disaster things that you were talking about. They even mentioned, they didn't, I don't remember if they had a shot of it or not. They mentioned the asphalt was so soft that women's shoes were getting stuck in the asphalt as they were walking through the Disneyland park on opening day. So some of the problems that you were talking about, something about Disneyland itself would be easy to visualize. This is just one of those things where I think this was an easy thing to fix, and you know, it's not that, it's disappointing that we missed that, all right, because I think that would have enhanced your speech and made it more interesting for everybody. All right, thank you.